Hey y'all, and welcome to my channel. When I saw this picture on Pinterest, I knew I had to recreate this shirt. I absolutely love it. I love the color combinations and the flower. And I actually made it last year and then just never posted the video. So we're going to post it today, and I hope y'all will like and subscribe for some more great videos. And let's get started. All right, so you need to start with basically like a t-shirt type pattern, kind of loose. This one has the set-in sleeves. You can also use a shirt that you already have to use as a pattern. I'm just going to use this one because I have it. It's kind of a loose fitting shirt. And then I've kind of drawn out a little bit of what it's going to look like. I'm going to do mine short sleeves. I'll add a little pocket, and I'm still going to do kind of the flower like was in the inspiration. After you have, your pattern or your t-shirt, what you're going to need for it. Other than that, I'm just using like thrifted stretch shirts. Like I have just this long sleeve striped one. I have this little t-shirt thing. I have this one. Evidently, I have an affinity for leopard print. Just some shirts. These are all things that I got really cheap at the thrift store. Most of them are too big for me. This one's actually too small. It's a small, and I probably won't use this one because this is a sweatshirt, and all the other ones are t-shirts. You can also use scraps of knit. I just went into my stash and I pulled out some, some of these are half yard or quarter yard pieces, little scraps. I actually have this piece here. I think I got this at Hobby Lobby a while back, of kind of like stretchy lace. And then I did pick up, this is the only piece I had to buy just because I didn't have any in my stash, but this is what I'm going to make the neck binding out of. It's kind of a ribbed knit in the white, and I just got like a quarter yard of it. But everything else, I said, I'm just going to use scraps and thrifted clothes and stuff like that. So this is a great way to use up little pieces left over from projects. I did take the pattern pieces and I drew them out onto just some brown paper. I usually pick mine up at Dollar Tree, or you can use wrapping paper or something like that, just so I can actually kind of play around with my fabrics, cut them and kind of lay them out into the pattern I want before I sew. So I went ahead and just did the pattern piece for the neck binding, and then I have my sleeve, and then I have my front, which I need to do another piece of so that I can have a full front. This is just half because it's supposed to be cut on the fold. And then I have my back. So I'm going to finish getting my pattern piece for the other side of my front. And then I will just start cutting things up and laying it out and kind of seeing how I like it, and then going from there before we piece it. All right, so now that I have my pattern all laid out, I'm just going to start cutting up the shirts and kind of laying out how I want the fabric to go. If you're just going to copy like a t-shirt that you already have or something, there are a lot of tutorials out there on how to make a pattern from a shirt you have. Just remember to add your seam allowances and go from there. Also, a couple things to be mindful of. You want to make sure that when you're doing you're laying out your fabrics, that you keep your stretch going this way so it stretches around you correctly. Some stretch fabrics will stretch in all directions and some will only stretch in one. So you want to make sure that the greatest amount of stretch goes around your body. Otherwise, it's not going to fit you correctly. So just keep that in mind when you're cutting and laying out your fabrics. Another thing to keep in mind is there's two ways that you can attach your fabrics. You can do it like normally when you would sew, where you would do right sides together and, you know, and then sew your seams together like this and then flip them so your seams are hidden. Or you can do a raw edge seam in which you take one of your fabrics, lay it underneath the other one, and then stitch on top so that you would be left with a little raw edge. And it doesn't unravel, so you don't have to worry about that. Just remember that when you are laying out your fabrics, you're going to sew everything together, that sewing your fabrics together will make your pieces a little bit smaller. So just make sure that when you're laying them out and you have the sides of your pattern and everything, that your fabric does overhang off the edge a little bit, because what you're going to want to do is sew all your pieces together. Then you'll take your pattern, lay it on top of your kind of patchwork quilt looking fabric, and then cut it out. So you don't have to worry about, you know, cutting your neckline and your armholes. You're just basically sewing together different rectangles and squares, or whatever shapes you have, into a piece that's a little bit bigger than your pattern piece, and then you will cut your top out. Okay, so I've got the fabric all laid out for the front of the shirt, and I'm actually going to sew it with raw edges. So this shirt that I cut up, you'll see they did that the same way, with the fabric overlapping and sewing it. So that's how I'm going to sew mine together. So I'm just going to use like a cream colored thread, kind of just a generic natural color thread with my stretch needle, and I'm going to start by, I would sew these together first, and then these two, and then sew that to that, sew this to this, and then sew this to this. And then once I get it all sewn, then I will cut out my shirt front. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing for the shirt back and both sleeves. All right, so I'm going to overlap my fabrics by about 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to start overlap one and the other. I've got my seam gauge set at 1/2 inch, and then just kind of butt it up to the marker and then put a pin in. And I'm going to do that all the way down until I get all the pins in. You see I've already done this one. And then I probably will sew it in 2 seams. I'll sew one pretty close to the edge and then one maybe 1/4 inch away with my seams. Now if you want really straight pieces of fabric, when you cut it up, you can always use, you know, a ruler and a rotary cutter, you know, something like that to get it straight. I just kind of eyeballed mine. I'm actually not worried about it being a little bit off. But that's how I'm going to join all the fabrics together. So since I'm overlapping them, you know, 1/2 inch, that's, you know, you want to make sure that, you know, when you cut your pieces out, that you're definitely making big enough so that once you have everything sewn together, you don't end up with a piece that's too small for your pattern piece. All right, so I've gone ahead and sewn up one of the sleeve pieces, and I just wanted to kind of show you what I did. I used a 3.5 straight stitch length and then sewed two rows of stitching. Now, you'll notice like on this one it was cut crooked, so it's more than the 1/2 inch. I'm just going to go back with scissors and trim it off closer. Now this is also a great time to use your creativity. You don't have to do like the double straight stitch. You could use a zigzag or even like a decorative stitch or something like that to sew your fabrics together. And again, this is, you know, doing the raw edge. You can also just put right sides together and then sew in like a 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and then top stitch or press or something like that. But I'm going to continue to sew all my pieces together, and then we can cut out and then assemble the shirt. All right, so I've got all my pieces sewn together for my front, and so now I'm just going to lay my pattern piece on, pin it down, and cut out. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the sleeves and the back. All right, now for the pocket. I'm actually going to use the hem as the top of the pocket, since it's already nicely hemmed and everything. Now the pocket size that you want to do, you know, that's up to you. I think I'm going to do a 6-inch square. You can make it one solid color. You could do, like I could cut the pocket here and make it two-tone, whatever. I'm just going to do one solid color. So I'm just going to take a ruler and measure down 6 inches. And then measure across 6 inches. Essentially, I'm just marking a 6-inch square. Measure down 6 inches from the top and cut that out, and then I'll just fold under about 3/8 of an inch or so on the raw edges, or you could just sew it like you did the rest of the shirt and leave the raw edges free if you wanted to. Again, up to you. And then you just want to place that on your shirt, which here's my shirt front. So you would just want to place your pocket, again, you know, up to you where you want to place it. I think I'm going to place mine about right there. You can always hold it up to you, you know, and then kind of just put the pocket on. Get a feel for it before you sew it on. So I will sew the pocket on, and then I'm going to go ahead and sew this side seam to the back. I'm going to sew it the same way I've sewn all these other seams, so it's raw edge. I'm going to go ahead and sew that to the back because this is where I'm going to put that flower applique, and it's going to go from the front to the back, so I want it sewn on first. So I'm going to do my pocket in the side seam, and then we'll be ready for the applique. All right, now to do that flower applique. So I'm going to measure about how big, this is the side seam, about how big I want it. We're looking at about 9 or so inches. So I think the easiest way to do this is I'm just going to take this fabric. This is a stretch lace type fabric, and I'm just going to cut, I'm going to fold it in half and then half the opposite way, and then I'm going to cut a 9-inch square, which would inevitably be, what, 4.5. I'm just going to cut a little off first. Ooh, scissors need to be sharpened. All right, so I'm going to take it from, So half of 9 is 4.5. So I'm going to take from 4.5 in the corner and mark it, essentially making like a 4.5-inch circle, because the flower is going to be obviously a circle shape. This number is going to vary just depending on, you know, how big yours is. And then I'm just going to kind of draw. It's not going to be exact, but I'm going to kind of draw just a, it's almost like making one of those snowflakes. You fold the paper and then cut it out and open it back up. So I'm going to kind of draw halfway because I want it to be even. And then once I draw it halfway, I can fold it in half again like this, and then cut it out, and it's going to be totally symmetrical. You can definitely just freehand something. You could maybe like use a Cricut machine or a stencil, you know, something like that if you wanted to. So I'm going to end up, there's my flower. I'm going to end up with a flower. Now I am going to cut a circle out of the center. So I'm going to fold it up again. And then I'm just going to cut a little circle out of the center from the point there. And there's my flower. Now I know the one in the haven't had enough coffee today. The inspiration photo, that's what I'm looking for. It had yellow behind it. And since I have some yellow fabric and it's going to be on a white and black stripe, I'm going to go ahead and put yellow behind it, just to kind of make it pop a little. Now, it'd be nice if this was just a hair wider, but it'll be fine. Now you can leave it like that so it actually looks like a center, or, you know, cut that out as well. And then I'm just going to cut just around it, just kind of freehanding it, just leaving a little bit of the yellow, maybe about 1/4 inch of or so of the yellow. And I mean, I can always, if I want, which I may go back and do, and just, you know, cut these off a little bit more just so that you see the yellow on them. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. But once I get this cut out, then I will just place it on the shirt where I want it to go. Use lots of pins, and then I'm going to sew it the same way as I did everything else. I'll just sew right around the edges to secure it on. Once that's done, then it's pretty much just a matter of sewing the shirt together like you would normally. All right, so I've got the sleeves on. I've done the hem at the bottom and one of the sleeves. The other sleeve, I was actually able to use the finished hem that was on the one I cut up. Have my pocket, my little flower that's sewn on, and now all that's left is to do the binding. Now, I mean, I made this as a shorter shirt. You could definitely make it longer. You could put binding at the bottom. If you've made it long sleeve, you can put binding at the arms. I have a pattern piece for my binding that I'm going to use, but if you're going to do your own, all you need to do is measure your neckline and then multiply it by 0.8. And that will be how long your binding piece needs to be. And then it can be as wide as you need it. This one is about 2 1/4 inches wide. So it will actually be folded in half like that, and then with the seam allowance. So this one would end up being about 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch wide once it's sewn in. So I'm just going to cut out one piece in the binding and then just sew it up to make a circle, fold it in half, and then sew it to my neck of the shirt, and then the shirt will be done. I'll go through and probably clip some threads and you know, things like that, but other than that, it will be done. All right, so it is all done. I'm just going to give it a good press. I've got my neckline in, got the little pocket, which I didn't fold over. I just did the same stitching as I did on everything else. I'm just going to go through, get rid of my little blue marks, give it a good press. There's the back of it, and then do a try on. Now all of my excess scraps I'm going to keep. There'll be a video coming out a little later on where I make a really cool rug out of t-shirts and knit scraps. So you can definitely save scraps for that. Otherwise, I hope this gives you a lot of creative ideas on things that you can do with scraps and thrifted clothing, or maybe clothing that's got some rips or holes, tears, things like that. So make sure you like and subscribe for more great videos, and happy sewing. So as I said, I made this video last year, forgot to post it, but I have worn this shirt so many times, and I always get so many compliments on it. It's super comfy to wear. It was so much fun to make and use up some scraps and things like that. Sky's really the limit as far as what you do and the different combinations of fabrics and things you can combine to create totally different looks. So I hope y'all will give it a try. And as I said, go ahead and subscribe. And I've got some more great videos coming on thrift flips and upcycling and some DIYs. So happy sewing.